Welcome everyone, let's get right into it. As you prepare to conquer the CPA exam, I want you to think of this explainer as your essential pre-flight briefing. Before we dive into the granular, detailed foundations videos later in your course, we really need to zoom all the way out. My purpose today is to give you the high-level map of the exam. We are going to break down exactly how the Business Analysis and Reporting, or BAR, discipline is structured. We'll look at what each specific area covers, pinpoint exactly what BAR builds on from your FAR studies, and identify what is going to feel completely new or specific to BAR. More importantly, we're going to talk about how you should be thinking about these questions before you even start studying the detailed topics. BAR tests a very different mental muscle than your typical accounting exams, so locking in this high-level strategy right now is absolutely crucial to passing. All right, let's dive in.
So here is our quick agenda for today's explainer. We're going to cover Area 1, which is Business Analysis, Area 2, Technical Accounting, and Area 3, Local Governments. After that, we'll dive into the specific BAR exam mindset, and then we'll wrap the whole thing up with your specific next steady steps.
Section 1. Welcome to the BAR map, Navigating the Discipline. Okay, so under the current CPA licensure model, BAR is one of the discipline sections you can choose to take. It is a really unique blend. It merges business analysis, highly technical accounting and reporting, and the specific frameworks of state and local government concepts all into one comprehensive exam. Now, I hear this all the time, and I want to immediately correct a super common misconception. BAR is absolutely not just advanced FAR. Yes, for sure, it heavily builds on the foundational accounting knowledge you might already see in FAR, but BAR takes that technical accounting knowledge and mixes it with higher-level interpretation, strategic decision-making, comparison, and the rigorous use of data. You aren't just showing the examiners that you memorize the rules, you are demonstrating that you can actually use those rules to compare historical results to forecasts, evaluate changing market conditions, and make sense of really complex financial information to advise a business. It's a whole different ballgame.
Let's look at the literal physical anatomy of the exam so you know what you're walking into. You are going to have 4 hours to complete the BAR section. The exam is structured around 50 multiple-choice questions, which we usually just call MCQs, and 7 task-based simulations, or TBSs. Now, the absolute crucial point you need to remember here is the scoring weight. It is an exact 50-50 split. 50% of your total score comes from those 50 multiple-choice questions, and the other 50% comes entirely from the 7 task-based simulations. What does that mean for you? It means you literally cannot just rely on memorizing multiple-choice facts to scrape by. You have to be ready to apply and analyze data in complex multi-exhibit simulation environments. Your time management between these two very different formats is going to be absolutely critical on exam day.
Now, looking at the exam content allocation straight from the AI-CPA blueprint, the BAR exam is divided into 3 very distinct areas. Area 1, Business Analysis, averages around 45% of your exam, representing a 40 to 50% blueprint range. Area 2, Technical Accounting and Reporting, averages roughly 40%, sitting in that 35 to 45% range. And finally, Area 3, State and Local Governments, accounts for the remaining 10 to 20%, averaging out at 15%. The huge takeaway I want you to have from this distribution is that Area 1 and Area 2 are the massive primary drivers of this exam. They make up the vast majority of it. Now, while you absolutely cannot ignore Area 3, every point counts, the reality is that the bulk of your passing score will be earned by mastering the analytical and technical reporting skills found in those first 2 areas.
Moving right along to Section 2, Area 1, Business Analysis.
As we just saw on the map, Area 1 is the absolute largest and most heavily analytical section of the entire exam. According to the blueprint, it features the highest concentration of analysis-level tasks. So what actually lives in this territory? Well, you are going to be looking at topics like analyzing complex financial ratios, conducting variance analysis between actuals and budgets, diving deep into cost accounting, forecasting future performance, understanding valuation, and assessing overall business risk. I really want to point out here that Area 1 often feels the most new to students. And why is that? Because it shifts heavily away from those standard straightforward journal entries. As accounting students, we are deeply trained to just balance debits and credits. Area 1, however, asks you to step back and evaluate abstract budgets and forecast data. It's about taking the financial statements and asking the bigger questions. What is this business actually doing right now, and where is it going?
To really bring this to life, let's look at a sample question focus. A question in Area 1 might sound something like this. Based on the provided forecasted data and current market variances, which investment alternative should the company select? Notice the phrasing there. We aren't just calculating depreciation for an asset. We are actively using data to compare alternatives. In a scenario like this, you might have to calculate the net present value of two completely different projects, identify which specific market variances are actually controllable by the management team, and then, finally, recommend the optimal path forward. Area 1 absolutely requires you to interpret information and make a solid business decision based on that interpretation, rather than just calculating a single isolated number and moving on.
Let's shift gears to Section 3, Area 2, Technical Accounting and Reporting. Now, for those of you who have recently studied FAR, stepping into Area 2 is going to feel like stepping into much more familiar territory. The topics here read exactly like an advanced technical accounting textbook. We are looking at things like complex revenue recognition, intricate lease accounting, consolidated financial statements, indefinite-lived intangibles, derivatives, and stock compensation. To be completely clear, much of Area 2 builds directly on that FAR-style accounting knowledge. You absolutely need those foundational building blocks. But here is the bare twist, and it's a big one. It pushes much further into the technical reporting rules from the FASB and the SEC, and more importantly, it asks you to assess their direct business impact. It's not just about knowing an accounting rule in a sterile vacuum. It's about applying that rule to a messy, real-world contract.
A classic Area 2 sample focus might look exactly like this. Review the attached lease agreement provisions and determine the appropriate journal entries for the lessee in Year 2. This is a perfect textbook example of what makes Area 2 so unique. It combines the familiar FAR journal entry mechanics that you know with the rigorous need to interpret complex contracts and reporting requirements. You have to actively read the agreement, figure out what the terms actually dictate under the reporting rules, and then execute the accounting. The exam is not just going to hand you the interest rate and the present value on a silver platter. You will very often have to extract those implicit rates from a dense, real-world legal exhibit before you can even think about touching your calculator.
All right, Section 4, Area 3, State and Local Governments.
This is the final, smallest, yet highly specific section of the exam. Like we said, it makes up about 10 to 20% of your overall score. In Area 3, we are dealing entirely with Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB, requirements. Topics here include government-wide financial statements, proprietary and fiduciary funds, complex fund reconciliations, and a ton of highly specialized terminology. I want to acknowledge up front that while a part of this certainly builds on the basic governmental accounting ideas that many of you associate with FAR, Area 3 has very different terminology and a completely different underlying logic that simply must be mastered. You are stepping entirely out of the familiar, for-profit corporate world and jumping straight into the highly regulated, unique world of municipalities and state reporting.
A prime example of an Area 3 focus would be something like this. Prepare the schedule to reconcile the net change in fund balances to the change in net position in the government-wide statements. Area 3 questions will frequently ask you to perform these types of complex classifications. Government reconciliation is honestly a massive hurdle for so many students, but it perfectly fits the whole BAR mindset. You aren't just memorizing definitions, you are actively reconciling between entirely different bases of accounting used within a single government entity. You literally have to convert modified accrual data into full accrual data, demonstrating to the examiners that you understand the underlying mechanics of both systems simultaneously. It's a puzzle, and you have to put the pieces together. That brings us to Section 5, the BAR Exam Mindset. Now that we've thoroughly covered the what of the exam, let's pivot to the how. The AICPA designed this discipline section for a very specific reason. Newly licensed CPAs today are expected to be analytical advisors, not just back-office data processors. I want to explicitly contrast FAR and BAR right here, because honestly, getting this distinction right in your head is half the battle. On one side, FAR knowledge is about knowing the journal entries, memorizing the strict reporting rules, and effectively doing the math. On the other side, BAR application is about understanding the business impact, engaging in decision-making, and interpreting what that math actually means for the entity. Now, to be fair, BAR does have some general exam skill overlap with AUD, specifically in how you have to analyze documents, investigate discrepancies, and filter out irrelevant information. However, content-wise, make no mistake, BAR is fundamentally built on your FAR-type technical accounting foundation, just pushed to a much higher level of real-world application.
To succeed on this exam, you absolutely must align yourself with the core testing objectives. BAR questions will heavily test your ability to interpret provided data from multiple different sources. You will be asked to compare business alternatives and make a concrete recommendation. Importantly, you are going to have to filter out the noise to find what actually matters. Think about it. When you sit down on exam day and open a task-based simulation, you might see 6 different email chains, 3 massive spreadsheets, and a multi-page legal contract. Half of that information might be entirely useless to the actual question. Your job is to filter out all that irrelevant noise to find the specific data points you need.
Finally, you must connect the technical accounting treatment directly to its operational impact. As you can see, BAR is intensely practical and incredibly applied.
If there is one single phrase I want you to write down on a sticky note and keep on your desk from this entire explainer, it is literally this: from calculation to conclusion. I want to take a deliberate pause here to really underscore this ultimate theme of BAR. It is never, ever enough to just run the numbers and find a mathematical answer. You must take that calculation and connect it to a final, logical business conclusion. Whether you are analyzing a budget variance in Area 1, determining the financial statement impact of a complicated lease in Area 2, or reconciling a government fund in Area 3, you are always driving toward a meaningful recommendation. The math is just step 1. The conclusion is what gets you the points.
And finally, Section 6, your next study steps.
Now that we have effectively mapped the terrain, how do you actually use this information to navigate the rest of your preparation course? We need an actionable strategy. So here is exactly what I want you to do next. Step 1, which you're practically completing right now by watching this, is to understand the high-level shape of the exam. You now know there are 3 very different blocks with completely different focuses. Step 2 is to proceed to the specific intro videos for Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3. Those short videos will give you a bit more detail on the lay of the land for each specific section. And then, Step 3 is where the real heavy lifting begins. You will move into the detailed foundations videos for each specific topic, diving into things like cost accounting, leases, and government reconciliations. Going in this logical order ensures you always see the big picture and never lose the forest for the trees.
I want to end our time today with this final thought: BAR rewards structure, interpretation, and knowing what the question is really asking. Passing this exam requires a highly strategic mindset. As you dive into your studies over the coming weeks, I want you to continually ask yourself not just, how do I calculate this, but why does this actually matter to the business? Keep this map in your mind as you study. Ultimately, on exam day, when you're faced with a mountain of conflicting data and a task-based simulation, will you just be a calculator, or will you be the analytical advisor the business actually needs? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I will see you in the next lesson as we begin to unpack Area 1.